The year is 331 BC. On the plains of Gaugamela, the fate of the Persian Empire hangs in the balance. A massive Persian army, hundreds of thousands strong, is about to be annihilated by a force less than a quarter of its size. How? How did Alexander's army achieve the impossible? The answer lies not just with the commander, but with the weapon he wielded. A revolutionary killing machine forged by his father that had perfected the art of war. This is the story of the Macedonian Phalanx. To understand this revolution, we must first go back a generation, to a time before Alexander. For centuries, ancient Greek warfare had been a brutal, predictable, and almost ritualistic affair. Armies of citizen hoplites, heavily armoured and carrying 8-foot spears, would crash together in a terrifying, grinding, shoving match called the orthismos. It was a contest of raw courage and physical strength, a human meat grinder that ended only when one side's nerve finally broke. It was glorious, but it was inefficient, tactically rigid, and horribly costly. A visionary king from the mountainous north, Philip II of Macedon, saw this system for what it was, a tradition waiting to be broken. As a political hostage in Thebes, he had studied the brilliant tactics of the general Epaminondas and witnessed the power of the elite sacred band. He realized that the future of warfare was not in part-time citizen militias, but in a permanent force of full-time professional soldiers, and to make them invincible, he would give them a new kind of weapon. He looked at the traditional 8-foot hoplite spear, and with a stroke of revolutionary genius he more than doubled its length. This was the result, the Macedonian Phalangite, a soldier engineered not for individual glory, but for his perfect anonymous place in an unstoppable machine. They were the gears in an engine of conquest. Let's scan the components. Component 1, the Sarissa, the heart of the system and its most terrifying innovation. An 18-foot pike crafted from tough, flexible cornel wood and tipped with a deadly iron leaf-shaped point. It was so long and heavy that it required 2 hands to wield, balanced by a bronze butt spike that could be braced against the ground. Its length was its genius. In formation, the first 5 ranks of the phalanx could project their spear points forward simultaneously, creating a monstrous, multi-layered hedgehog of death. An enemy soldier would have to fight his way through 5 sharp, overlapping spear tips before he could even reach the first Macedonian soldier. It was a weapon that killed from an impossible distance. Component 2, the shield, the aspis. Because the Sarissa required 2 hands, the large heavy hoplite shield was obsolete. Philip replaced it with a much smaller bronze-faced shield barely 2 feet wide. It was slung from the neck and shoulder, resting on the soldier's arm and freeing up both hands for the massive pike. It offered far less personal protection, a terrifying prospect for any soldier. But less was the point. In the phalanx, you did not protect yourself. The formation protected you. The true shield was the forest of pikes projecting from the ranks of your brothers in arms. Component 3, the helmet, the Phrygian helmet. Unlike the face-obscuring Corinthian helmet of the traditional hoplite, which severely limited vision and hearing, the Phrygian helmet was open-faced. Its distinctive forward-pointing peak was brilliantly designed to deflect downward blows from swords and axes, while allowing the professional Phalangite to see the entire battlefield and, crucially, to hear the orders of his officers. It was the helmet of a disciplined soldier in a complex machine, not an individual hero fighting in a chaotic scrum. Component 4, the armor, the linothorax. While commanders and elite units might wear a bronze muscle cuirass, the standard Phalangite was equipped with a linothorax, a cuirass made of multiple layers of linen glued together to form a tough, dense, and surprisingly protective shell. It was significantly lighter, cheaper, and more flexible than a heavy bronze cuirass. This innovation was key to the Macedonian way of war. It allowed the phalanx to march faster, for longer distances, and with less exhaustion than any army before it, enabling the lightning-fast campaigns that would become Philip's and Alexander's signature. Component 5, the last resort, the xiphos or the curved kopis, a short sword carried at the hip. For a Phalangite, this was the weapon of absolute desperation. If an enemy had somehow survived the wall of pikes, if the formation had broken, if the system had failed, this was the final tool for the terrifying, intimate slaughter that would follow. It was a weapon a Phalangite hoped he would never have to use, because if he was drawing his sword, it meant that something had gone terribly, horribly wrong. But these individual components, revolutionary as they were nothing on their own. Their true, world-conquering power was only unleashed when they were combined into the formation, the phalanx, a perfectly integrated system of violence. From a tactical view, the phalanx was designed to be the ultimate anvil. It would advance across the battlefield with a slow, grinding, terrifying momentum that was psychologically devastating. Its objective was not to chase and destroy the enemy, but to fix their main infantry line in place, pinning them on that impenetrable wall of Sarissa points. They are held in a death grip, unable to advance against the forest of spears and unable to retreat without being slaughtered. Once the enemy was fixed upon this anvil, their formation locked and their attention consumed, Alexander would unleash the hammer. His elite companion cavalry, the greatest mounted force of the ancient world, would charge into the enemy's now exposed and vulnerable flank or rear. Pinned by the phalanx to the front and shattered by the cavalry from the side, the enemy formation would disintegrate. This hammer and anvil was the signature tactics, the perfect symphony of violence that made the Macedonian army invincible for a generation. But this perfect killing machine, this apex predator of the ancient battlefield, had two fatal flaws. First was terrain. The phalanx was like a Formula One car, unbeatable on a smooth, flat track where its formation could remain perfect. But on broken, hilly, or rocky ground, its rigid 256-man blocks would bend and crack. The disciplined line would become a staggered mess. Pikes would get tangled or snag on rocks. Gaps would open in the spear wall, creating deadly vulnerabilities that a clever enemy could exploit. The machine was only perfect in perfect conditions. Second, and most critically, was flexibility. The phalanx could only fight in one direction, forward. It was a slow, clumsy beast, almost impossible to reorient quickly once it was committed to an advance. If a faster, more adaptable enemy, like the Roman legion that was to come, could exploit a gap and get inside the spear wall, the entire system would collapse. The long, unwieldy Sarissa was utterly useless in the brutal chaos of close-quarters combat. A Phalangite was a sitting duck, unable to effectively use his primary weapon. The phalanx's greatest strength would become its greatest weakness, turning the invincible fortress into a death trap from which there was no escape. For over a century, from the fields of Chaeronea to the plains of India, the Macedonian phalanx dominated the battlefields of the ancient world. It was the weapon that conquered the Persian Empire, shattered every army that stood in its path, and forged the Hellenistic age in its own image. Its legacy is a testament to the revolutionary power of tactical innovation and professional discipline. But its eventual brutal defeat at the hands of the Romans would signal another great shift in the history of warfare, proving that in the endless bloody cycle of military evolution, no weapon, no matter how revolutionary, remains invincible forever. To see the day this revolutionary formation was finally broken by a new superpower, watch our full-length documentary on the Battle of Cynoscephalae. Click the video on screen to witness the ultimate showdown between the Legion and the Phalanx.